first thank Osho. See, in India, this year, I was doing a retreat, and Osho called me upstairs to suggest that we do one in Germany. And I don't initiate these things. I just get called and I say yes. So thank you, Osho, first of all. Otto. I'm so sorry. Oh no. I want to thank Otto. Oh God, so sorry. I was with Osho upstairs, right, this year. So sorry. And so now, I don't know who knows me, who doesn't know me. I have passion for living this knowledge, for integrating this knowledge in every area of my life, and inquiring non-stop. And this is why I'm teaching this, because I understand there's no higher knowledge that we are about to embark upon. There's no higher knowledge. It is the anta, it is the highest of the highest. And knowing the value of this knowledge, I would not want to invest my time anywhere else except in this. This is all I do. This is my life. I teach Vedanta in Sanskrit. This is my speciality. And at the same time, I acknowledge that I also have my faults. I also have my blind spots. I also have my weaknesses. They may come through. They will come through for all of us. So I first want to show you that there's no need to fear. There's no need to be afraid. We are all making mistakes. In fact, my teacher, Nima, when she said, once on a webinar, I was with her, she admitted openly that she also makes mistakes. She's not perfect. And in that moment, I developed such depth, such love for her, because she was so real, she was so down to earth, and yet she is, for me, she's so sophisticated in her depth. She's so well-spoken, well-articulate. And to hear that from her, that's why I call her my teacher, because she's real, she's down to earth. She doesn't, put herself above her students. And so I learned, and I'm obviously learning every day because it's a journey for all of us. And the teacher is no different than a student. We're both a teacher and a student in any area of life. So please understand that for me, there's no difference whether I'm on that side or whether I'm on this side. Right now, this is a duty that I'm doing. I will have a duty to be on that side when I'm learning with her. Now my duty is to be on this side. That's all it is for me. It's an impersonal duty that is to be done and that is to be commenced right now. Okay? So let's inquire into reality. Let's inquire into the subject. Let's inquire into the subject who's experiencing this right now. Let's inquire into the I who's experiencing this right now. Let's inquire into the I who's looking through all of these eyes. The same eye that's looking through all of these eyes is the same eye looking through these eyes. Let's discover this. And let's connect to something deeper than we are accustomed to, that we are used to. So, I thought I'd start out by beginning by sharing, going back to the basics. What is Vedanta? Okay? What is Vedanta? Sometimes I understand that we've heard teachers, I've heard on a piece of paper you've had experience with some people came up on the list. I know them all. So let's for a moment put that aside and firstly begin a prayer, and then I will tell you what this prayer means. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This prayer firstly acknowledges that there's always a speaker and a listener. Sometimes you're a speaker, sometimes you're a listener. The only way a fruitful, a constructive conversation can take place, one that inspires, one that moves you, one that transforms you, both the listener and a speaker, for a constructive conversation to ensue, to take place, what has to happen? Both of them have a responsibility to put aside what? Their judgments. To put aside their judgments which are saying, who is this person? What do they know? What do I know? Where are they getting at? To put aside the insistent chatter that is a result of what? Our previous doings, previous conditionings, our judgments, right? We need to put aside this chatter just for a moment so that a teaching can take place. So when we chant this prayer, we say that may both the speaker and the listener put their best self forward. Best self forward. Even right now, as this person is speaking and this person is listening, even now there is a duty for every one of us to pay attention and slowly, slowly let this teaching unfold. And let the judgments, put the judgments aside. In fact, bring the judgments when this program finishes. For now, put the judgments aside, put this chatter aside at least for a couple of days. Okay, so this is something that we can agree upon. So now, having said that, let's talk about what is Vedanta. Vedanta is not a philosophy. A philosophy is something like the 5 men, the 5 blind men, who all get led to the elephant, and they're all asked to investigate a part of the elephant, the whole elephant. And so one of the fellows goes up to the elephant and they touch the tusk. They feel the tusk. They speak about the tusk. They write poetry about the tusk. They write books about the tusk. They become an author about the tusk, a New York Times bestseller about the tusk. They get followers about the tusk. And therefore, what have they done? They have taken one part of reality, and they have turned it into what? The whole. The whole reality has been what? Superimposed, juxtaposed with one single part. And thus, this is what we more or less call philosophy. Now, another fella takes out the tail, checks out the tail, feels the tail, same story. They too write a book. And now you have 5 fellas, one of them called System 1, System 2, System 3, System 4, 5 fellas. All of them are what? Ironically correct. They're all right. But are they absolutely right? Are they absolutely right? No. However, they are right, pertinent to one part of reality. Vedanta is not a philosophy. In fact, in Sanskrit, we call Vedanta Vastu Tantram, whereas a philosophy is Purusha Tantram. What is Vastu Tantram? Vastu Tantram is an analysis pertinent to the entire whole, to the entire reality. Purusha Tantram is an analysis pertinent to one section of the whole. We're not interested in sections of the whole. We are interested in what? The whole. And therefore, by understanding the whole, we understand the sections also. Does this make sense? It is not a philosophy. It is thereby what? It is a means of knowledge. What is a means of knowledge? Right now, your eye, your physical eye, is looking at this person called Andre. Why is there vision of Andre right now? Because the eyes are open. So the eyes are sending data to your mind. And therefore your eyes, that by which knowledge takes place, is called a means of knowledge. That by which knowledge takes place is called means of knowledge. Therefore our eyes are what? Means of knowledge for color, size, form, shape, and so on. In that same way, what is Vedanta? It is a means of knowledge for that which is behind the mind, behind the senses. And therefore, that which is behind is to be investigated. Vedanta is a means of knowledge. It is not a philosophy. This is the first understanding, a quick refresher, knowing you've heard this before for some of us for 20 plus years. It doesn't matter. We just need a quick refresher. I can see on your eyes who's done this before and for how long. It's very easy to identify that. Put that aside. We're not interested in that. When I learn with my teacher, I am just a beginner. I ask her basic questions. What is Ishvara? And then she explains. It's called a beginner's mind. A beginner's mind. In fact, wisdom ends when beginner's mind ends. This is the funny thing. One can know 20 years of wisdom, and one day they decide and say, you know what, I've heard 20 years of wisdom. The moment one decides, I've heard 20 years of wisdom, I need not hear more, that is when 20 years of wisdom, that fella is no longer wise. The only time one can take a break is the last breath. That final moment, last breath, lying in bed, or however it happens, then one can take a break. And that's when you are truly wise. Until then, beginner's mind, as though I have never heard this before, because the fact is your mind is changing, the teachers are changing, the knowledge is changing, the times are changing. So when is there not more space for knowledge? So let this knowledge come through. What is the word Vedanta? If you take the word Archie, English word Archie, that's a root, a Greek or a Latin root, I believe. Either a Greek or a Latin root. Either way. Archie means government. So now, if you put the word prefix in front of Archie, like anarchy, that means no government. Monarchy, that means single government, like mono. Hierarchy, that means orders of government. So this Archie is thus what? A root word. When you attach something onto the root word, what happens? Then you have a certain definition. In that same manner, what does the word Vedanta mean? It's made up of two words, Veda and Anta. Veda and Anta. The first word Veda comes from the root vid, V-I-D. What does vid mean? It means knowledge. That means not only knowledge, it also means to attain. To know / to attain. So therefore, vid means that by which I come to know. That by which I attain knowledge. So now, Vedanta, already understanding some understanding is there. That by which I understand or come to understand what? What do I come to understand? I come to understand that which is behind and that which is beyond. What is this behind? What are you talking about? And why should I need a Veda to understand anything? I've got my eyes, I've got my ears, I've got my mind, I've got friends, I've got anything I can know. Why do I need the Veda to know? Why do I need the Veda? I can just look outside and knowledge can take place. Why do I need the Veda? Because if I ask you the question right now, can your senses, can your eyes see mitochondria? No. Can they see a cell, mitochondria? No. So what do you need to see the mitochondria? You need a microscope. So what happens when you attach a microscope to your eye? What happens when you attach the means of knowledge called the microscope to the eye? What happens? Knowledge takes place of something that the eye cannot see. Knowledge takes place. So this means if you attach the microscope to anything other than the physical eye, does knowledge take place? No. So the same way, Veda attached onto the mind, what happens? I come to know that which I always am and you always are also. If I attach the Veda onto the instrument which is required to ascertain this knowledge, then what happens? Then I come to know that which the Veda was intended for. And what is the Veda intended for? To discover the reality which is abiding behind the mind, behind the senses. What is this reality behind the mind and behind the senses? This is the first session. We're just getting into it. We will discover this. What else is the Veda? Veda also shares that which is not only behind. Now, when I say behind, I'm not talking about locationally behind. Are you behind your mind right now? Are you like going, look at this mind looking outside these eyes? Is this your experience? No. What's your experience right now? It's one homogeneous experience. There is this, there is sight, and there's also what? There is experience, and there's also what? Come on, this is a quiz question. Me? What? Here, okay, what? Okay. But when I say experience, it includes all five senses, including hearing. So there is right now experience, and there is what?
Perspective. I don't know the word in English. Perspective.
What's this?
Perspective.
Okay, go on. That's also part of experience. Okay, right now there's experience and?
Intelligence.
Okay, closer. Experience and? I mean, yeah, okay, now it's also part of experience. Right now it's being experienced. Huh?
Consciousness.
Okay, I make more personal. Experience and?
Yes, which?
I. Not consciousness. What's consciousness? What is the word over there? Experience and you. That's the only thing that that's your experience on earth. Experience and I. So, this is what we mean by behind. When we say behind, we're not talking about locationally behind. Just like you have appliances, a toaster and a speaker and a heater or a fan. And then we say electricity is behind the toaster, the fan, and the speaker. What do we mean by that? Is it locationally behind? No, it's through and through, the whole appliance. Now suppose the fan doesn't know that which is behind the fan. Suppose. What happens with the fan? The fan takes pride. It says, you know what, look, it's hot right now. I am cooling you. This is my doing. I'm a doer. I'm a doer of this blowing. Without me, you're all toast, says the fan, who doesn't know what is that which is behind. Is the fan really a doer? Take the electricity out. Is the fan really a doer? No. But fan, not knowing about that which is behind, what happens? The fan takes itself as a karta, a doer. And therefore, when it starts to do the blowing, it starts to enjoy the consequences. How you're going, oh, thank you very much, this feels lovely. And therefore, what? The fan becomes a bhokta, an enjoyer. Not knowing about that which is behind, the fan becomes a karta, a doer, and a bhokta, and an enjoyer. Therefore, by bringing in this knowledge, we need not make this mistake of being a doer / enjoyer / sufferer anymore, knowing that it is only possible because of, in this case, we can bring the word consciousness. But we will speak about what this word is later. Okay? It also talks about what is beyond. What is this beyond that you speak of? What is this beyond that Veda speaks of? For example, the Veda speaks about the fact that your mind is different from your brain. How so? How is that the case? How is my mind different from my brain? Simple. How much does your brain weigh? Did you measure? I checked online, 1.3 kilograms. That's the weight of all of those physical neurons put together into a jelly substance, 1.3 kilograms. How much do your thoughts weigh? Did you measure your thoughts? Did you put your thoughts on scale? How much? How much do your emotions weigh? Therefore, but look at this. Both the brain and the mind, both the brain and the thoughts are what? They're just objects. You know about your brain, you cannot see it, but you know there's a brain. You know about your thoughts, you cannot see your thoughts. In fact, you can see your thoughts, but they're both objects. They're both objects. And yet, they share a different order of reality. One's physical, one's subtle, one's not so physical. That's called thought. You understand? Simple. Brain is physical, one is not physical. That's called subtle. Therefore, the Veda shares what is behind, beyond and behind. What else does Veda share? What happens after death? Can you know that? What happens after death? No. This is something that the Veda shares, the process, what happens after death. We need not get into that. Maybe we will later, a little bit, when we speak about karma. It also speaks about the lokas, the 14 worlds. 14 worlds. This is not the only world, believe it or not. There are infinite worlds. I say again, there are infinite worlds. This is just one of them. This is what the Veda reveals. It is only one who is self-centered, who thinks, we are alone, human beings, there is nothing like us. This is a very shallow mind, I tell you. There is a much vaster universe that the mind cannot possibly comprehend. This they speak about, the 14 worlds. Not only that, but the 14 worlds, we call this in Sanskrit, one Brahmanda, one universe. One universe contains 14 levels of experience. This is just one of them, called Bhuloka, called Earth. And then we've got the higher 7, we've got the higher 6 and the lower 7. We've got Swarga up, we've got the highest Brahmaloka. We need not know about this, but they speak about this nevertheless. And if one Brahmanda is 14 lokas, they say what? There are infinite Brahmandas. So not just 14, 14 times infinite. That's how many worlds there are. This is unknowable to a human being except through the Vedas. That which is behind and that which is beyond is the topic of the Vedas. Now, I want to share something else, which is this Veda. How do you prove that the Veda is correct? How do you prove that this text is correct? You can't prove it. Yes, you can prove it. How? Experience. Super. How do you prove that the Veda is correct? The only way you can prove that the Veda is correct is by going through the Veda, discovering the means of knowledge that the Veda was meant to teach you. That's how you experience this truth, this reality. By going through the logic of the Veda, you become the proof of the Veda. Suppose there's a microscope right here, a microscope, and the scientist says, you know what? This means of knowledge, that which is meant to reveal what your senses cannot reveal, this means of knowledge can show you molecules. And you say, no, I don't believe that. Prove it to me. And the scientist says what? No, look through the microscope. I need you to actually use it and look through the microscope to prove there's a molecule. And you say, I don't believe you. Prove it. And the scientist what? Gives up. They give up. They say, I'm sorry, maybe you're not qualified. Maybe you're not ready right now. But guess what? The microscope doesn't care whether you use it or not. It's just going to wait for you to use it. It is made specifically to be used to reveal the reality of the tiny. In that same way, the Veda doesn't care whether it's used or not. It is just waiting there to be used. And once it's used, under the guidance of a competent acharya, using the means of knowledge, this Veda reveals what it's meant to reveal, and that is the subject I being the one without a second. The subject I, the reality. We'll just call it the reality. We don't have to use these fancy words, the reality. It's meant to reveal the reality. And you happen to be that reality right now. How so? Prove it. Hey, let's go through the program. Follow the program, and then you will prove it. You understand? So the only way to prove it is to use it. And this is why some level of faith, some level of trust is required in this knowledge so that it can actually take place. Where does the Veda come from? Or what's the Veda made of? Okay. What's the Veda made of? 2 sections. I think some of us already know this. The first section is about the rituals, actions. how to attain certain rituals, wealth, have healthy children, have health in life, have health and wealth, and all of this. This is what it reveals. This is the first section of the Veda. The second section of the Veda is what we are doing right now. The second section of the Veda is called Anta. So now I discuss what Veda means, that which reveals beyond and behind. What about this Vedanta, this Anta word? So what did I say about the Veda? It has two sections. One is about rituals, meditation, right? All of these rituals to attain wealth and success in life, which has its part, which has its merit, which has its usefulness, which is fine. But the second section is called Anta. Anta is the section on the culmination of the Veda. What it's really meant to show you, the reality. It's meant to show you the reality. And this reality is called Anta. The reality that it's meant to show you and how to go about showing you this reality is the Anta section, the Anta. And this Anta, therefore, is also called Upanishads. Upanishads. You already know this word, I'm sure. Upanishads. So Anta is the final section of the Veda, which is meant to reveal the reality which you are right now. The other name for this Anta is Upanishads. In this tradition, there are three main texts. And we have to know about these texts to get a context about Tattva Bodha. That's where it's all leading to. What's this text, Tattva Bodha? We're getting to that. This tradition has three main texts. The first text is called the Bhagavad Gita. What is the Bhagavad Gita? Suppose you have 108 cows. Moo, 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 moo. 108 cows. And you take a bucket of a big bucket and you milk one cow, another cow, all the way to 108 cows, to 108th cow. You have now milk of all, 108 cows. You have the milk of 108 Upanishads. And what is the Upanishads? That which reveals the truth. That which reveals the truth. So every Upanishad has a section, right? It's supposed to reveal a little bit. They all reveal the same thing, but they reveal it in a different manner. So now you say a little bit of this Upanishad, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. All 108, you get the essence, the crux of every Upanishad, and this is what you call the Bhagavad Gita. So in other words, the Bhagavad Gita, I tell you, is one of the most wisest texts and one of the cleanest texts ever written because it is succinct, it shares the crux of the knowledge of the Upanishads, and therefore by going through the Bhagavad Gita, you have technically gone through the volume of 108 Upanishads, which is a lot to study. It takes several lifetimes to get through 108 Upanishads. Or do you just want to go through the Bhagavad Gita, which takes the absolute crux? That's the glory of the Bhagavad Gita. And what happened in this text? There's a man in this tradition called Vyasa. And Vyasa is the man who wrote the text Mahabharata. So in the middle of the Mahabharata, I don't know if you heard Mahabharata, right? In the middle is the Bhagavad Gita section. And he expanded upon the conversation of Krishna and Arjuna. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, good. So Vyasa expanded upon the conversation of Krishna and Arjuna, and therefore we have what? This lovely, grammatically correct text without any errors. Now, do you really think that Krishna and Arjuna had that kind of a conversation, line by line, without any errors? You know, perfect syntax, perfect grammar? Do you think that's the case in real life? No. In other words, that's not how we speak. We make errors. We go, We make errors. This is how we are when we speak. So what Vyasa did is he took the text that happened apparently between Krishna and Arjuna, and then in the light of the 108 Upanishads, he clarified all of those statements that Krishna and Arjuna had to bring some clarity, some succinctness onto their statements. And therefore, we have this grammatically perfect text called the Bhagavad Gita. The second text that we have in this tradition, the main text, is called the Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra. Now, in those times, we're talking 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, we had intellectuals. We had Sankhya, Jainism, Buddhism, Visheshika, we had Dvaita, we had different schools of Buddhism, okay, we had Vishishta Dvaita, we had Sankhya, okay, we had yoga, and then different sects of Buddhism, Mahayana, right? We had different sects within sects. And all of these sects had their own views, just like that elephant, right? Just like that elephant. They all had their own views, and they were convinced this is the view. And so in the light of that view, they attacked Advaita. They attacked Vedanta. They tried to destroy Vedantic statements. Not only did they try to do that, but also some intellectuals came and said, this statement doesn't make sense. How is it that I am Brahman? How is it that I am the whole? Explain to me, I don't believe it. And they brought objections. So what Veda Vyasa had to do is he had to appeal to those who are highly intellectual, who are able to find the smallest logical flaw and just debate you all night like that. So for those ones, Brahma Sutra is written. For the highly intellectually identified individuals. There are quite a few. There were very few nowadays. There were a lot more in those times, but nowadays there are very few. In my webinar classes, I have a couple students who like Brahma Sutra, and through their personality I can tell they are highly intellectual. They need that logic, that give me the nuances of the logic. But most of us, we don't need the Brahma Sutra because we don't need so much intellectual reasoning to understand something that is so simple. Okay, so this text is for those individuals with all the respect to them. I've done Brahma Sutra Chatushtari, which is a preamble to Brahma Sutra at Chinmaya, and it was, I tell you, hair-splitting details. It was just, oh my God, there's so much detail into the smallest statements, like Tattvamasi, and they go into these pages upon pages of text. So Brahma Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and the last text is, we have the Upanishads. So the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutra, they make up what we call in this tradition Shastra. Shastra. Shastra means scriptures. So whenever I say Shastra, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra, and the Upanishads. That is called Shastra. Now, what kind of text is Tattva Bodha? Oh, we need to find this out. Tattva Bodha is called, in Sanskrit, you don't have to take this down, for those of us who want to know, Prakarana Grantha. Prakarana Grantha means topical text. Topical text. It's very simple understanding. What does topical text mean? It means you take the crux of Shastra. I'm sorry, what does Shastra mean? You take the crux of Shastra and then you analyze those statements and you just teach those statements. The absolute crux of this huge volume of texts. You take the most important teachings, and those most important teachings are right here inside the Tattva Bodha. So this means by understanding Tattva Bodha, you automatically come to understand the majority of Shastra. Okay? So this is the beauty of Tattva Bodha. It is a simple text. It expounds the truth in the simplest possible way, while at the same time preserving the absolute crux, the absolute pinnacle, the core essence of the Shastric teachings. So it is, in my humble opinion, or just opinion, it is such an incredible text that it really is complete of itself. It's a complete text of itself. More specifically, they say that the Tattva Bodha is meant to what? Introduce you into the Shastra. It's meant to introduce you into the Shastra. This is also true. However, I also dare to say that the Tattva Bodha is complete of itself also. Okay, so both ways you can look at it. So therefore, what does this mean? we are in excellent hands, we're in good company, and we can therefore begin this text by knowing Tattva Bodha. We can what? Know the crux of the Shastra. And what does the Shastra reveal? It reveals the reality, the total reality, which you are not apart from. Okay. Now, it is 4:10. Okay. Okay, let's do an invocation and then we will close and then we'll continue. Okay. Invocation is verse 1. So now we go into the text. Now, why do we need an invocation, by the way? Invocation is, why do we need an invocation? Tell me. What is an invocation? Invocation.
You invoke God for the teaching.
I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, you invoke Ishvara for understanding the teaching.
Okay, good. Good. So we invoke. See, it's like an affirmation, a self-affirmation. Just like when you go to a job interview. Suppose I know some of us are retired. So when we used to go to the job interview, then what happened? We gave ourselves a little pep talk. I can do this. I will pass the test. I will do my best. This is going to happen. And so you just kind of pumped yourself up. Now, invocation is not about pumping yourself up. It's more of just what? Becoming a deserving instrument. You're just acknowledging, hey, I just want to become a deserving recipient of this knowledge so that this knowledge can take place and have its maximum impact on my reality, on my perception, on my emotional system, and on my intellect. So you can have maximum impact. Okay. So now, what's this go? Let's see. Okay. So let's go through this verse. So this is verse 1. You can now pull out your text if you want. Does anyone need the paper? Vasudevendra Yogindram Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam hitarthaya Tattva Bodho bhidiyate Tattva Bodho bhidiyate. Okay. So we will be chanting this as our first verse every time we come to class. So now, Natva, so Natva, having saluted whom? Having saluted my Guru, and who is this Guru? Jnana Pradam. So having saluted Jnana Pradam, in other words, the Guru, who is my teacher, who expounds Jnanam, who expounds the knowledge. So having saluted to my teacher, who expounds knowledge, who gives knowledge, and who is this Guru? Who is this author's Guru? Apparently the author of this book is Adi Shankara. However, there is highly doubtful, in my opinion, because it says here, my Guru is what? Vasudevendra Yogindram. Now, so in other words, who is Vasudeva? Krishna, right? Krishna. Now, who is Adi Shankara's Guru? Who is Adi Shankara's Guru? Well, it's not Krishna, it's Govinda. So maybe, that's some kind of indication there that perhaps this is not by Adi Shankara, but we do know that this text is written by some Shankara. Don't think that Adi Shankara is the only Adi, it is Adi Shankara, but there are many people called Shankara. So by one or more Shankaras, this text has been written. So having saluted to my Guru who gives knowledge, and who is this Guru? Vasudevendra Yogindram, to Krishna. My Guru is Krishna, says the author. And now, why has this text been written? Mumukshunam hitarthaya. So in other words, hita is what? So, hita is easy understanding. So what? I want, and artha is purpose. So I want for the purpose of easy understanding. For whom? I wrote this text for the purpose of easy understanding. For whom? And then the word says, Mumukshunam. For those who are desirous of liberation. For those who are desirous of making money, of being popular, of having a good time, this text is not for them. This text is for whom? Those who desire liberation, moksha. So right now, this means what? Right now, we're all qualified. If we are here for any other purpose, like to compare teachers, what does this teacher have to say compared to other teachers that I've heard? This text is not going to work. Because the only reason why we're here is what? For those mumukshus who are seeking liberation, and what? And this text is what? A means to recognize oneself as the whole, which is liberation. Okay? Now, so in other words, this text is written for those desirous of liberation, and how is this going to happen? Tattva Bodho abhidiyate. And for this reason, abhidiyate, expounded. What is expounded? Tattva Bodha. The text called Tattva Bodha is expounded. Why is the text Tattva Bodha expounded? For the purpose of those who are desirous of liberation. So this means every time we come to class, that is the only purpose why we're here. So we need to be very clear. Okay? So now you ask yourself, what is liberation? Am I liberated? Am I not liberated? Who's liberated in here? Is the teacher liberated? These are silly questions that have no bearing. They're useless questions. Forget about these judgmental questions. As I said at the beginning when we chanted Sahana Vavatu, this is all about putting those questions aside. Otherwise, the teaching is not going to take place. Okay? So we need to talk about what is this liberation. So let's chant together. Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattva Bodho Bhidiyate. I will close. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.